I'm here with Nathan Harte, CFO of Avino Silver and Gold Mines. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe we can start off with La Preciosa, and you can talk to us about how you're advancing the project. You've described it as a vehicle to go from being a junior to a mid-tier producer. Can you just talk a bit about what that actually means in numbers and the implications for the company?
For sure, yeah. So with La Preciosa, we just announced last month that we got underground mining permits there, so that's a big step for us. And we've started development essentially, as of today. We're kicking that off, or moving forward with development, with the goal of bringing it into production on a smaller scale later this year. That's going to take us from, we did 2.7 million ounces of silver equivalent this year, and the goal is to get up to 8 to 10 million ounces by 2029, and La Preciosa is the cornerstone of that growth.
And your stocks is on a 52-week basis over the last year. It's been a fantastic performance, verging on a three-bagger. You've had a strong 2024 and you built cash up to about $26 million. Can you talk a bit about the path that got you there, that allowed you to be in that position?
Sure. A lot of it came down to some operational efficiencies. There was a lot of things that were headwinds for Avino in 2023. Stronger Mexican peso, just supply chain issues that were plaguing post-COVID still and lingering, and some other smaller factors that kind of plagued us. Whereas 2024, those things really became tailwinds. The US dollar, especially post-Mexican election, was a lot stronger than the peso, so it helped our costs 20-25% on a unit basis, which is huge. I mean, that's pure margin. Metal prices being at $30 silver and 2,900 gold are a big one, and we actually produce a fair bit of copper as well too. So at $4.50 a pound, it's pretty good. So all those things in conjunction kind of allowed us to go from, we went from $8 million cash at the end of the third quarter, and we ended the year with 27 million, and we're expecting to see that continue to build.
The cash balance to continue to build. And so maybe you can contextualize that cash balance in the context of your capital budget. So you've said 13 to 18 million, which leaves you a considerable cash cushion. Yeah. And if that cash cushion is going to build from here, the uses of cash, it's a privileged position to be in our sector.
We are fortunate in that sense, yeah.
But allocating that capital efficiently is going to be on the minds of investors.
For sure, and that's at the forefront of our minds as well too. I think first and foremost, we do like having a decent buffer. We'd like to have 10% of our market cap in cash, at least initially, and then put it to work. We've allocated 5 or 6 million of that capital to La Preciosa. So that's just development and getting equipment on site and ongoing lease payments for that. The rest is reinvesting in the Avino mine. But as you said, we're going to have ideally a surplus if metal prices continue to hold where they are, and we're putting that to work. The idea is to just use that to grow the company. Like you said, we're trying to get from a junior to a mid-tier producer. We have La Preciosa, but then we also have a third project with a pre-feasibility study on it that we'd like to continue inching forward slowly. Both of those are going to be pretty impactful in getting us up to that mid-tier producer status.
And that growth, would you want to be it all organic, no acquisitions?
I don't want to say no acquisitions because we'll rule it out, especially once your equity starts getting a bit more value and you have some leverage. We still think we are undervalued. I know everyone at this conference will say that, but we do feel we truly are still undervalued on a NAV basis, especially with the ounces we have too. So we at this time, maybe we could look to pick up some assets that are a little that some other companies maybe are struggling with, just financially or have a bit of a weaker balance sheet. But initially, the plan we have right now to get to 8 to 10 million ounces, that's organic.
All organic.
All organic.
Okay, and maybe we could shift gears to more of a macro take on the political situation. So we know there's been a sea change in administration in the U.S., and that's had knock-on effects. We've heard a lot in Canada, but and maybe you can elaborate or shed some light on Mexico in terms of streamlining, fast-tracking projects. What are the real-world implications of some of the changes that we've been seeing?
So I think, I mean, in Mexico, they had the AMLO government for a number of years that was a radical shift from the pro-mining government in decades prior. And that slowed things down, for sure. In some cases, if you had an open pit project, it may have brought it to a halt. I mean, we've seen that in the industry.
I mean, appropriation raised its head.
It did for a little bit, I think. Yeah, especially in the in lithium and some of the other critical minerals. I think silver was safe from all that talk, thankfully. Copper, maybe there was some discussion, but silver was, Mexico's the #1 producer of silver in the world. I think there's a lot of investment that comes back in there, so they don't think they'll go down that route anytime soon. But with the new president, Claudia, she seems a lot more pragmatic. And a lot more open to, I wouldn't say open to mining specifically, but foreign investment and job creation. She's been pretty quiet on mining actually since she stepped in, whereas AMLO was very vocal. She's well educated. She was educated in the U.S. She's a PhD. She understands how the world outside of Mexico works, but also how the world should, or how Mexico should operate, and how much mining does play into the GDP in Mexico. From a permitting perspective, I mean, there are certain roadblocks still for open pit projects. We got an underground mining permit. From when we submitted to when we actually got the permit and the blasting permits was 12 months. Yeah. I mean, that's not outrageous. No. You compare that even to the Canada or the US, it was pretty good. Now, having said that, we didn't need a tailings permit. We didn't need cyanide. We didn't need certain other things that, maybe some others would need. But we see, I think, a pathway for companies to continue to get permits in Mexico, for sure.
So you're confident in the regulatory environment?
Yeah, I mean, they're fair. It's still the same people approving, whatever government's in place. It's still the same inspectors. It's still the same, people evaluating your environmental submission. The mandates can change from the top, but at the same time, as long as you're going about things the right way, you should still get what you need to out of operating in Mexico. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, maybe you could leave us just with a few catalyst things to watch for how we should be looking at Avino over the course of 2025.
For sure. I think, I'm the CFO. I would be amiss if I didn't say this. Our financial results are out in a couple weeks. We think that'll be a catalyst, and people see just how strong of a end of the year we had. There's been hints to that, but we haven't really been able to talk fully about the numbers. Of course. So those should be quite positive. That'll be out on March 11th. And then it's La Preciosa and moving it forward. So we've got equipment mobilized at site. Blasting is supposed to get underway in the coming days, weeks, because we've got all the explosive approvals from the military. And then moving forward from that, it's going to be when we get it into production, when we get ore going to our mill at Avino, and essentially getting that step change later in 2025 from a production feed mix, because La Preciosa is higher grade. It's about over double the grade we're doing at Avino on a silver equivalent basis. So once you add that to our mill feed mix, it's just an automatic increase. And then for 2026, ideally we have a full year of production at La Preciosa mixed in with Avino, and we see a meaningful step change. We're trying to get up to 3.5 to 4 million ounces for 2026.
So verging on that mid-tier.
Getting there, taking one step up the ladder. Yeah. I think that's the first step, and then with a goal of 28, 29, getting up to that 8 million range. And obviously, these are very profitable ounces too.
Yeah, that's the big one. Fantastic. Thank you very much for the update.
Thank you for having me.
That's been Nathan Harte, CFO of Avino Silver and Gold Mines. Avino trades on the NYSE Amex under the ticker ASM, and on the TSX under the same ticker, ASM.